At exactly 9:17 that morning, a little girl had less than 20 minutes to live. Her breathing was shallow, fragile, fading, and in the middle of a crowded hospital, her mother fell to her knees. "Please, someone save my daughter." Her voice cracked. Not loud, not dramatic, just breaking. People heard her. They looked. And then they looked away. Because what that child needed wasn't simple. It wasn't quick. And it wasn't cheap. It was a treatment so expensive, it might as well have been out of reach entirely. The kind of cost that turns emergencies into decisions. The kind that makes people hesitate, even when time is running out. 17 minutes. That's all she had left. 17 minutes before the damage became irreversible. 16. A nurse stepped forward, then stopped. 15. A doctor whispered something under his breath and turned away. 14. And her mother held her tighter, like she was trying to keep her here by force alone. "Please, I'm begging you." But no one moved fast enough. Because sometimes the system doesn't fail loudly. It fails quietly. One delay at a time. One decision at a time. Until it's too late. And then, just as the room began to accept what was coming, a man walking past the hallway suddenly stopped. He wasn't rushing. He wasn't panicking. He didn't even look concerned. But he heard her. And for a brief moment, he just stood there, watching, thinking, calculating. A man whose time was worth more than most people in that room combined. A man who had built his life on decisions. Cold ones, fast ones, final ones. And in that moment, with 13 minutes left, he made one. Before we dive deeper, let us know in the comments where you're watching from. We'd love to hear from you. And don't forget to hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what he chose to do next didn't just affect that little girl. It exposed something no one in that hospital was prepared for. And once it started, there was no stopping what came after. His decision didn't come with emotion. It came with a single glance and a question no one expected. Who approved this delay? The room went still. Not because of what he said, but because of who he was. Adrian Cross. A name that carried weight in places most people would never see. A man known for building empires and dismantling anything that stood in his way. But he wasn't supposed to be here. Not in this hallway. Not at this moment. And definitely not standing in front of a mother who had nothing left to give, except one last plea. She didn't know his name. She didn't care. All she saw was someone who hadn't walked away. "My daughter, please," she whispered again, her voice barely holding together. The child in her arms didn't move. Not this time. And for the first time, something shifted in his expression. Not sympathy. Recognition. Because this situation felt familiar. Too familiar. But the hospital staff weren't focused on the child anymore. They were focused on him. Nervous glances. Quiet whispers. A sudden tension that had nothing to do with medicine and everything to do with exposure. Why had no one stepped in sooner? Why did it take him, just standing there, for the room to start changing? And more importantly, what did he see that everyone else was pretending not to? Because this wasn't just hesitation. It was something else. Something structured. Something repeated. A system where decisions weren't made based on urgency, but on something far colder. The mother didn't understand it. She only knew one thing. Her daughter was slipping away, second by second. 12 minutes. The question was, how many times had this already happened when no one important was there to witness it? And why did it feel like the answer was being hidden in plain sight? Adrian took one step closer, and that's when everything started to unravel. But what he was about to uncover wasn't just negligence. It was something much bigger. Something no one in that hospital wanted brought to light. And once he saw it, there would be no going back. So the real question is, was he about to save a life? Or expose a system that was never meant to be challenged? Because what he discovered next would destroy everything. 3 weeks earlier, everything was normal. She woke up before sunrise, packed lunches, tied shoelaces, and rushed out the door with the kind of quiet determination no one ever applauds. 2 jobs, back-to-back shifts, no complaints. Because when it's just you, there's no room to fall apart. Her daughter was her reason, her routine, her entire world. Bright eyes, endless questions, a laugh that filled every corner of their small apartment. And always, that little teddy bear tucked under her arm. Worn, faded, loved. It wasn't much, but it was enough. Until one phone call changed everything. A school nurse, a shaky voice, words that didn't make sense at first. Shortness of breath, fainting, "You need to come now." Then came the tests, the waiting, the silence between answers, and finally, the diagnosis. Rare, aggressive, urgent, the kind of condition that doesn't wait for you to figure things out, the kind that starts a countdown the moment you hear it. At first, she fought it the only way she knew how. Long hours turned into longer nights. Bills piled up. Savings disappeared. Then her job was gone. And just like that, so was her insurance. Everything she built unraveled in days. But she didn't stop. She couldn't. Because her daughter was still smiling, even when she didn't have the strength to stand. Still holding that same teddy bear, even as her hands grew weaker. Still asking questions no mother ever wants to hear. Mom, am I going to be okay? And she always said yes, even when she didn't believe it anymore. Back in the hospital, that same little girl lay silent, her head resting against her mother's chest. The teddy bear still there, barely held in place. But this time, there was no smile, only stillness. And time slipping away. Across the room, Adrian cross-watched, a man who built his life on control, precision, power, results. He didn't believe in luck. He didn't believe in chance. Only decisions. And consequences. Hospitals like this, they weren't new to him. In fact, this one wasn't unfamiliar. Because years ago, before the wealth, before the influence, this place had already taken something from him. Something he never got back. And standing there now, watching history repeat itself in a different form, he felt it again. That same silence. That same delay. That same quiet moment where someone decides whether a life is worth the cost. And suddenly, this wasn't just about a stranger's child anymore. It was personal. But here's what no one else in that room realized. The delay wasn't accidental. It wasn't confusion. It was policy. And policies don't hesitate. They follow rules. Rules that someone created. Rules that someone benefits from. Adrian's eyes shifted toward the staff, then toward the back offices, where decisions were really made. And in that moment, he understood something chilling. This wasn't a one-time failure. It was a system. And systems like this don't break by accident. So the question is, how many lives had already been lost, waiting for someone to step in? And who was making sure no one ever did? Because what Adrian was about to uncover next wasn't just unethical. It was deliberate. The first refusal didn't sound cruel. It sounded procedural. We need authorization. 2 words. Calm. Controlled. Final. Her mother didn't understand. She just heard delay. And delay was something her daughter didn't have. 13 minutes. Another nurse checked the chart, then paused. A look passed between them. Quick. Silent. Unspoken. And then came the second refusal. Without coverage, we can't proceed. This time, it landed harder. Because now it wasn't hesitation. It was a decision. The kind made long before this moment ever happened. The kind that turns emergencies into negotiations. Her mother's voice broke again. I'll sign anything. I'll pay later, please. No response. Just silence. Then the machine let out a sharp, uneven sound. Not loud, but wrong. Everyone heard it. No one moved fast enough. 12 minutes. A doctor stepped closer, then stopped mid-motion. Like something invisible had pulled him back. Orders. Rules. Limits. Things that don't care who's dying. The little girl's hand slipped. The teddy bear fell halfway to the floor, barely caught against her arm. And for a second, it felt like everything was already ending. Then the machine spiked again. Faster now. Irregular. Unstable. And suddenly, the room shifted. Because this wasn't theoretical anymore. This was happening. Right now. 11 minutes. A quiet argument started in the corner. Low voices. Tense. One said, "We have to act." Another answered, "We can't without approval." A third voice cut in. "If we don't, she won't make it." And then, silence. The kind that follows a truth no one wants to say out loud. The kind that confirms it's already too late. We're losing her. The words didn't echo. They dropped. Heavy. Final. And for the first time, panic broke through the surface. Her mother screamed. Not loud, but raw. The kind of sound that doesn't ask for attention. It demands it. 10 minutes. Still no one took control. Because no one wanted to be the one who broke the rule. And that's when Adrian moved. Not fast. Not emotional. Deliberate. Measured. He stepped forward, past the staff, past the hesitation, until he was standing close enough to see it clearly. The numbers. The decline. The truth no one was acting on. He didn't look at the mother. He didn't look at the child. He looked at the people responsible. And then, he asked it. One question. Sharp. Direct. Unavoidable. Who authorized denying treatment? Everything stopped. Not the machines. Not the time. The people. Because that question wasn't about policy. It was about accountability. And no one answered. Not immediately. Not confidently. Just silence and shifting eyes. Because the answer wasn't simple. It led somewhere. Somewhere no one wanted to point to. 9 minutes. Adrian's gaze hardened. He took another step. Name. One word. And suddenly, someone spoke. Quietly. Reluctantly. A name. Not a doctor. Not a nurse. Someone higher. Someone behind the scenes. And that's when the room changed. Because this wasn't a medical delay anymore. It was a command. A decision made before this child ever arrived. A system already in motion. And the moment Adrian heard that name, something clicked. Recognition. Connection. A pattern. Because he had seen it before. In reports. In numbers. In complaints that never made it public. This hospital wasn't just struggling. It was selecting. Choosing. Deciding who gets time. And who runs out of it. 8 minutes. Adrian reached into his pocket. Not for money. Not yet. For something else. Something far more dangerous. Because what he was about to do wasn't just going to save a life. It was going to expose a machine designed to quietly let people die. And once that machine was seen, it wouldn't survive. So the question is, who gave that order? And how far did it go? Because what Adrian uncovered in the next moment would destroy everything. The name hung in the air longer than it should have. Not loud, but heavy. Because everyone in that room knew exactly who it belonged to. And more importantly, what it meant. 8 minutes. Adrian didn't repeat the name. He didn't need to. His eyes had already shifted, not toward the doctors, not toward the nurses, but toward the offices behind them. The place where decisions were signed, not spoken. And just like that, the balance of power changed. A moment ago, no one was moving. Now everyone was. Orders started flying. Voices rose. Machines were adjusted. A doctor who had hesitated minutes ago suddenly stepped forward. Prepare the room. Now. Another voice cut in. Get the medication ready, move. The same system that had stalled suddenly accelerated. But not because of the child. Because of him. 7 minutes. The mother didn't understand what had changed. She only saw movement. Hope, returning too late. Her hands trembled as she held her daughter closer. Please. But something didn't feel right. Because if they could act now, why didn't they act before? 6 minutes. Adrian didn't celebrate the shift. He watched it. Carefully. Like a man who had seen this kind of reaction before. The panic wasn't about losing the child. It was about being exposed. Because when systems break, they don't panic. People do. And the way they were moving now. Too fast. Too coordinated. Too sudden. It wasn't instinct. It was fear. 5 minutes. A senior administrator rushed in. Suit. Composed. Controlled. But the eyes gave it away. Not concern. Calculation. They approached Adrian quietly. Voice low. Careful. We're handling the situation. Adrian didn't respond. Didn't even look at them. Because he wasn't interested in reassurance. He was interested in truth. And truth doesn't rush in to fix problems. It hides behind them. For minutes. The child was moved. Equipment followed. Commands layered over commands. But something else was happening. Something subtle. Files were being pulled. Screens turned away. Staff avoiding eye contact. Like a script everyone suddenly remembered. Adrian noticed. Of course he did. Because this wasn't chaos. It was containment. And containment only happens when there's something to hide. 3 minutes. He turned. Not toward the emergency room, but toward the administration wing. And without asking permission, he walked. Straight past the staff. Straight past the tension. Straight into the place where decisions lived. No one stopped him. That was the first mistake. Because the moment he stepped inside, the story changed. Offices weren't empty. They were active. Too active. Phones ringing. Voices lowered. Screens flickering with files being closed too quickly. And then, he saw it. A list. Not labeled clearly. Not meant to be obvious. But it didn't need to be. Names. Cases. Numbers. And beside them, codes. Some marked urgent. Some marked delayed. Some marked something else. Something colder. Something final. Adrian stepped closer. His eyes scanning. His mind connecting. Because this wasn't random. It was organized. Systematic. Intentional. And then he saw it. A column labeled priority tier. And beneath it, a pattern. Patients with full coverage. Immediate action. Patients without it. Delayed. Deferred. Or worse. Flagged. 2 minutes. His jaw tightened. Because this wasn't just about money. It was about selection. A system deciding who was worth saving and who could wait, even if waiting meant dying. And then he saw her name. The little girl. Already entered. Already processed. Already placed. In the lowest tier. Adrian didn't move. Didn't speak. Because in that moment, everything made sense. The hesitation. The silence. The refusal. It wasn't confusion. It was policy. And this policy had been running long before today. How many names were on that list? How many families had begged the same way? How many children never made it past the waiting room? 1 minute. Behind him, footsteps. Fast. Nervous. Sir, you shouldn't be in here. Adrian didn't turn. Because he was already past that point. Already seeing what they didn't want seen. Already understanding what they couldn't undo. This isn't what it looks like. That line. Always the same. Always too late. Adrian finally spoke. Quiet. Controlled. Then explain it. No answer. Just silence. Because there was no explanation that could fix this. No excuse that could justify it. This wasn't mismanagement. It wasn't oversight. It was design. A system built to protect profits. At the cost of human life. And now, it had been exposed. Seconds left. Back in the emergency room. The fight for the child's life continued. But here, a different fight had just begun. One that wouldn't end with a single patient. One that wouldn't stay hidden anymore. Because Adrian Cross didn't just walk into problems. He dismantled them. And now, he had proof. The kind that doesn't disappear. The kind that destroys careers, institutions, entire systems. But here's the part no one saw coming. This hospital wasn't acting alone. Because buried deeper in those files was something even bigger. Something that connected this place to others. The same pattern. The same codes. The same decisions. Happening again. And again. And again. So the real question isn't just to approve this. It's how far does this go? Because what Adrian uncovered in those records wasn't just corruption. It was a network. And once he pulls that thread, everything unravels. Adrian didn't raise his voice. He didn't need to. Authorize everything. He said, calm and final. No hesitation this time. No debate. No policy standing in the way. Because now, the system wasn't in control anymore. He was. And within seconds, the same hands that had refused to act were suddenly moving with urgency. Medication prepared. Equipment activated. Orders executed without question. The cost no longer mattered. Because Adrian had already decided. He would cover all of it. Every procedure. Every second. Every chance that little girl had left. But even as the treatment began, something felt off. Because this wasn't relief. It was reaction. Too fast. Too controlled. Too coordinated. Like they had done this before. Like they knew exactly how to switch from delay to action. The moment the right person stepped in. And that's when the truth settled deeper. This wasn't a broken system. It was a flexible one. A system that worked perfectly for the people it was designed to serve. The child's condition stabilized slightly. Not safe. Not certain. But holding. For now. Her mother collapsed into quiet tears, gripping her daughter's hand like it was the only thing keeping her grounded. But Adrian wasn't watching them anymore. He was watching the administrators. Because while everyone else focused on saving one life, they were focused on saving something else. Themselves. Phones were already ringing. Messages being sent. Conversations happening behind closed doors. Damage control. Containment. And then, the first complication hit. Not medical. Legal. A voice cut through the tension. Sir, you don't have authority to override hospital protocol like this. Adrian turned slowly. Measured. Unbothered. Watch me. But the pushback didn't stop. Because now it wasn't just about one hospital. It was about exposure. And exposure spreads. Another voice joined. If this goes public, it affects more than just this facility. There it was. Not denial. Not defense. Confirmation. This wasn't isolated. Adrian's eyes narrowed. More than just this facility? No one answered. But they didn't need to. Because silence tells the truth louder than words ever could. And then came the betrayal. A senior staff member stepped forward. Someone who had been present from the beginning. Someone who had watched the mother beg and said nothing. This situation is being handled internally, they said. Careful. Controlled. We advise you to step away. Advise. Not request. Because now they weren't just protecting policy. They were protecting a system far bigger than this room. And that's when Adrian realized something critical. They weren't afraid of him paying. They expected that. What they were afraid of was what he might do next. Because money solves problems, but exposure destroys systems. The child's vitals dipped again. Suddenly, violently, machines reacting, staff scrambling. A reminder. Tom wasn't done with them yet. Hope wasn't secure. And for a brief moment, everything balanced on the edge again. Her mother looked up, eyes wide, searching for something to hold on to. Anything. Adrian stepped closer, not to the staff, not to the machines, but to the truth he had just uncovered. And in that moment, he made a second decision. Not emotional, not impulsive, strategic. He reached for his phone, not to call for help, but to start something far bigger. "Get me legal," he said. No hesitation. Her mother collapsed again, this time not from desperation, but from relief too heavy to carry. Tears fell without control, hands shaking, breath returning in pieces. Adrian looked away, not out of indifference, but because for him, this wasn't victory. It was proof. Proof that she could have been saved earlier. Proof that the delay almost killed her. Proof that this system chose when to act. And that's when the final piece fell into place. Because as the hospital scrambled to recover, as the staff tried to regain control, Adrian already had everything he needed. The files, the names, the pattern, and most importantly, the connection. This wasn't one hospital. It was multiple, linked, coordinated, running the same structure, the same decisions, across different cities, different states, quietly deciding outcomes based on numbers, not urgency, not humanity. And now, that entire network was exposed, not internally, not privately, but legally, publicly, irreversibly, because while they were trying to save one moment, Adrian had already moved beyond it. Lawsuits filed, authorities alerted, evidence secured. The system didn't just crack, it broke, and there was no putting it back together. But here's what no one expected. Adrian didn't stay. He didn't wait for recognition, didn't speak to the press, didn't even say a word to the mother. Because for him, this was never about being seen. It was about making sure something like this could never happen again. As the room settled, as the machines steadied, as life slowly returned, the little girl's hand moved, just slightly, and there it was, still there, that same worn teddy bear, held tightly, like she never let go. A small sign, a quiet victory, but even in that moment, something felt unfinished, because saving her was only the beginning. So the real question is, how many others didn't get that second chance? And what happens when the full truth finally comes out? Because what this story uncovers next won't just break hearts. It will expose everything. One decision, one moment, can change everything. Not loudly, not dramatically, just a choice, made in seconds, that echoes for years. That morning, a mother walked into a hospital with hope. Minutes later, she was on her knees, begging strangers to care. And for a long time, no one did. Not because they couldn't, but because something told them not to. A rule, a system, a line that should never have existed in the first place. And that's what makes this story uncomfortable, because it forces a question most people avoid. How many times has this happened when no one powerful was watching? How many voices went unheard simply because they didn't matter enough? Then everything stopped. And in that silence, a truth became impossible to ignore. Systems don't fail overnight. They're built, decision by decision, compromise by compromise, until one day, doing the wrong thing feels normal. But that wasn't even the worst part. Because the people inside that room, they weren't villains. They were professionals, trained, skilled, experienced, and still they hesitated. Why? Because sometimes the system is stronger than the individual, and breaking it comes at a cost. Adrian paid that cost, not just with money, but with exposure, risk, consequences that don't disappear when the story ends. Because when you challenge something that powerful, it pushes back, quietly, relentlessly, and that part of the story has only just begun. The little girl survived, but survival isn't the full story. It's the reminder, a reminder of what almost happened, a reminder of what has happened to others, and a reminder that not every story gets a second chance. So the real question is, if you were standing in that room, watching time run out, hearing that mother beg, knowing what it would cost to step in, would you have done it? Or would you have looked away like everyone else? Because the truth is, Most people don't think they're part of the problem until they're faced with a moment that defines them. And by then, it's already too late. If this story made you think, made you question, made you feel something real, then hit that subscribe button so you never miss any of our upcoming videos. Because what happened here isn't as rare as people want to believe, and the next story might be even harder to ignore. But what we uncover next will change the way you see everything.